Hi, welcome to Y Cats with Andrew LZ. My name is Andrew LZ. I am a Phoenix comedian, and this is the show Y Cats, the movie podcast where I watch the movie Cats once a week, every week for a year. I took a month off. I'm gonna take weeks off from time to time, but my guest this week, I made him watch it. He watched it yesterday. My guest this week is Paul Goebel.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me. Man, Why Cats is the perfect name for this podcast.
Yeah.
That's all I can think the whole time I'm watching it. Why? Who is this for? WTF? It is insane to me that this is a movie that somebody made.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a lot of bad movies, and I mean, I'm old enough now that I've seen. I watched Ishtar. I lived through all that stuff.
Yeah.
We all know that there's historically bad movies, and then they come back around, whatever. But this one is so amazing because these days, first of all, it's very hard to make a movie that doesn't make money. Because even if you make a bad movie, everyone says, well, we'll make all our money back up overseas. Over in Europe and Japan and China, people love to watch American movies. In fact, so much that they cater to it. The studios cater to it. They don't want to put a lot of like racy stuff in there because like the communist countries won't show it. So this is perfect for that because because they don't understand the fucking words anyway. So they just sit there and they listen to the music and they look at the things. And people in other countries are watching the movie Cats the way that people in America watch the play Cats.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because as a play, that's the brilliance of Cats, really. Because you look at the movie and go, what the fuck? Who would ever want to see this? And yet, historically, millions of people have watched the musical Cats.
Yes.
It's one of the most popular musicals in the history of the musical. So you can't just write it off as a piece of shit. But as a play, as a musical, it's almost musical because it's 98% spectacle.
Yeah.
Like going to a circus, it's amazing costumes and makeup and jumping around and the sets. And it's like, oh, they look tiny compared to these big sets. And because you're there and you can almost touch them literally, it's interesting and it's cool to watch. Unfortunately, none of that transfers to the screen. Zero. Absolutely none of it does. And it's amazing to me because I've never been a big fan of musicals. I've always been very critical of musicals. I was a theater major in college, and many of my friends were musical theater majors, and I would literally make fun of them every chance I could because I would say it's not a real major, even though I was an acting directing major. But as a musical, it's got everything. But then you make it into a movie, and it's like there's no dialogue. There's barely a story. Like you can kind of discern what the plot is, but you really have to pay attention to what they're saying because there's no narrator. There's no like Chiron to tell you what's going on. Correct me if I'm wrong. You've seen this movie a few more times than me, but it seems to me the premise is that once a year there's this big festival, a ball, where they name somebody the king of cats or whatever, and it's a great thing. And this bad cat, of course he's black, played by a black guy, wants to win and will do whatever it takes to win. And then there's a reason they don't want him to, and then a good cat, hooray. Is that pretty much what it's all about?
Pretty much. I mean, you're right. There is no true story to this. It's literally it's a series of introductions leading up to somebody's death. Basically.
Yeah. And when you're looking at it, you have to. It's like I envy the people who could just sit and watch this and enjoy it and not bob their head to the music, because the whole time I'm thinking, who is this for? And I'm going back further and further. Is it for fans of the musical? Well, no, because this is an insult to the musical. So no. And I'm like, is it for fans of the poems? Does that even exist? Is there such a person?
I don't think so. I mean, there has to be some T.S. Eliot fan out there who loves all three versions of this: the works of T.S. Eliot, the musical, and this movie.
Right. I could see liking the poems, being some weirdo who likes the poems and likes Andrew Lloyd Webber. So this is right in your wheelhouse. But even then, the movie is an insult to you. I would think if you watch the movie, you go, "What the fuck is this?"
And like I said, my guest this week is Paul Goebel of Beat the Geeks and all your favorite game shows. He's also on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/thekingotv. A friend of mine from out here, and clearly you're very passionate. You're very passionate.
Well,
And it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Thanks.
I honestly did not want you to stop.
Well, it's funny because throughout my life and my career, because of what I do, and my opinions are somewhat valued by some people. This happens a lot where people will ask me to watch something and be on a show or do an interview or whatever. Early in the days when Beat the Geeks first aired, I went to see the first Scooby-Doo movie with Chris Gore from Film Threat. And it was a big deal at the time because it was the first live action Scooby-Doo movie. And I was like, this is going to be cool. And we both went and we took our kids and it was a real fun thing. But it was because I was going to do an interview with another guy from Film Threat about the movie. And this guy's deal was anytime they would do an adaptation of something, he would get someone who was an expert in whatever the adaptation is. Like when they did the Lord of the Rings movie, he talked to this guy who was an expert on like multiple dimensions and Middle Earth and shit like that, and said, okay, how'd you like the movie from your perspective? And for me, it was like, okay, TV guy, now they made this thing into a, whatever, how do you like it? And I had complaints, of course, like we all do. The fact things they do in the movie that they would never do in the cartoon. We all have problems with that.
Yeah.
And he says to me, I remember at one point in the interview, he says to me, but it's just a movie. Why are you making such a big deal out of it?
Because it was made. I mean, it's made to make us to strike a conversation. You should,
Yes.
You shouldn't have nothing to say about a movie once it's over.
Right.
Especially if it's an existing IP, there should be some sort of discussion between the people who either have never seen the original existing IP or this is their first introduction to it. So
yeah, and somebody told, and he, and he says it's just a movie, and I'm like, well, it's not just a movie. There are hundreds and hundreds of people. There are hundreds and hundreds of people who are making their living on this movie. So it's not just a movie, It's Scooby-Doo. Like you said, the property has been around for hundreds of years, and there's a lot of people involved in that. So to say it's just a movie, maybe it is to you, but first of all, no movie is just a movie. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a movie. It'd be a fucking script or a treatment, And I was like, and you could say that about anything. Why do people get so bad about how they interpret the Bible? It's just a book. Why are you so upset about the way we use the Lord's name in vain? He's just an idea. I mean, you could say that about anything. So don't set me up by saying, hey, we're going to talk about this thing. And then while we talk about it, go, yeah, but who really cares? Yeah. That's kind of bullshit. It'd be like if you were like, okay, we're talking about cats. And then I go off on how bad it was. And you go, geez, Paul, well, why'd you sit through the whole thing? Okay, that's the whole fucking point. We're supposed to talk about it.
Exactly.
And like you said, especially, I mean, it's art at the end of the day. It's art / entertainment. And anyone will agree that the point of art is to spur conversation and to give you ideas about what is good and bad and what works and what doesn't. And art reflects our life back to us and blah, 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 and all that shit. So, I mean, Cats is really, if you ask me, it's kind of the perfect. What year did it come out? 2019?
Yes, 2019. It was December 2019.
So it came out just at the end of 2019. And it really is, I mean, history will go back. And when they talk about how awful these 2 or 3 years were, when people talk about the Trump era and all the bad things that happened, they will literally go, murders, the wall, Cats movie. They will list off all those things that happened in the Trump era, and Cats movie will be one of them. I honestly believe that. Trust me, when I'm long dead and and someone's doing on 2020, they're doing a retrospect on 2020, 10 years from now, they're going to say, and of course, that's when the Cats movie came out. We all remember that, right? What's funny to me is anyone involved in that movie will tell you, oh yeah, it sucks. I hated being involved in it. It was a nightmare every day on the set. Like Idris Elba, Judi Dench, even James Corden made fun of the movie. The
Yeah.
guy fucking will do anything for $1, and even he admits the movie was a piece of crap.
Yeah.
That's what surprised me the most, is that there's people in it who are really good. And like, I love Rebel Wilson. And I will even say her performance was good in the movie. It's just unfortunate that her performance is fucking nonsense.
Yeah. Last night when you messaged me, usually I watch the movie the day of the recording of the podcast, just so it's fresh in my mind and everything like that. But last night you texted me, I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm gonna have enough time in the morning to get this watched, and with enough time to like get all kind of presentable ish. And so I watched it last night, but right before you messaged me, I had just smoked a pretty big blunt. And I usually don't watch this movie high, because I usually, like, I don't know, but this is number 16 viewing for me so far.
Yeah, you've seen it a few times.
Yeah.
It seems to me like seeing it high is a little redundant, quite frankly.
Oh yeah, but I mean, that was my original intention the first time I saw this in theater. And I took an edible and it didn't take. I did not get high during the movie, so this is literally the first time I watched it high, and I live tweeted it. I tweeted 91. I had 91 tweets over the course of 2 hours, and I just talking about just needed to remind myself, because I haven't done this in a month. I haven't watched it in over a month, and I need to remind myself, hey, this is my guest's first time watching this, first time experiencing this. What are their thoughts going scene to scene to scene with all these characters with absolutely zero context? Because I love musicals. I grew up loving musicals. I grew up being a part of some, and like my family, we all love musicals. Even my dad, before he passed away, he loved musicals. His favorite one was Hair. I have never seen Cats. I had never seen Cats before. I didn't see it on Broadway. I own the recorded version of it. I've just never watched it.
I've never seen the musical or any version of it either, but yet, you know, I'm an old man. I'm in my 50s, so I basically was living through the Cats era when it was Cats Now and Forever, you know, and people talked about it constantly. And when I was in college, people were constantly singing songs from it, and you know, you couldn't turn anywhere without hearing the fucking memory.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this, when Letterman was on the air, there was, you know, he would sometimes latch on to something that made no sense, and he would do it like all the time on the show, do an impression or whatever, or say it. And for a while, it was that he would go, midnight and the kitties are sleeping. Like he thought you would just sing those two lines over and over, and then the band would come in, and then it would. That became like a prevalent thing. So it's like, Jesus, Cats is in the world. And then when I had kids, I would sing that to them, not knowing what the words were. So I had to I basically ended up making up a whole version of Cats where I made up the words and taught it to my kids, and we would sing it together. And and while I'm watching this movie, like you said, it occurs to me, this is the first time I've ever seen it. Yeah. And that's why I was so struck by how hard it is to figure out what it's about, because I was like, wow, I've never seen this before. And I knew it was based on poems. I knew it was about cats. I'm familiar with some of the songs, but I really had no fucking idea what this show was about. And it's because it's barely about anything.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about Andrew Lloyd Webber and all the shit he does like that, like Starlight Express. I mean, that's probably the best example of, you know, all style, zero substance. I mean, they're literally roller skating around, and your fucking mind is spinning and you can't keep track. And at the end of it, you realize, oh, they were just singing a song about trains every fucking time. What was that? You know, and that's I guess the brilliance of Andrew Lloyd Webber, that he fools people into thinking he writes a decent story.
Yeah.
But there's no fucking story there. That's the part I just can't get over.
I've had quite a few guests on here. I mean, I had Trajan probably gave me the funniest idea of what this movie is. It's a death cult. And every year they're just trying to figure out who's going to be the one worthy enough to become like their sacrifice. And other people have given it kind of like religious allegories, like as far as like Macavity, Idris Elba being the devil, and having Grisabella go with him only to become exiled and stuff like that. It. I've had so many people try and like rationalize this, and I mean, it's fun to talk about it. Like it's fun to have a conversation about, just because it's such a stupid thing. But I last night when I was when I was watching it and I was tweeting about it, I was talking about this is something that should only exist as a Broadway musical.
Exactly.
The only reason why it should exist that way is because nobody's just randomly walking into a Broadway musical having no idea, oh, I'm walking into a musical. So you've made that choice to go see it. You made that choice to go see it,
and you're open to it. You're 100% open to the experience. So
this shouldn't be available for the entire world to see. It shouldn't. No. I'm going to make as many people as I can watch it, but it's. But yeah. I'm convinced that it's only lasted so long, like at such a high level, is because they get these amazing performers to come in and kill these songs. They destroy them. Like they're amazing singers, they're amazing performers. But is it good because the source is good, or is it good because the performer's good? And I'm convinced it's 100%. It's all about the performer.
Yeah, I will say a thing about musicals that people don't really take into account is that, you know, you can say you're a fan of a musical without ever seeing it on stage. I mean, take a look at Hamilton. Those tickets were impossible to get, and yet
everybody knew the words.
Exactly. Everybody knew the entire fucking soundtrack, and then maybe they went and saw it. And Cats is a perfect example. There are people who say, yes, I love Cats, but I refuse to sit through the musical. You know what I mean? And you can, and if you have a musical, it can sustain itself on just the songs alone. I mean, that's the beauty of a musical. People have, you know, the fact that, oh, Calcutta, everybody's nude. There's no costumes and no makeup. And so it's like, wow, it's just the songs and the story we're telling. You know, shit like that. People use that, the fact that that it's all, that the songs can basically propel you through the storyline. Because I don't care how great your musical is, if the songs aren't good and catchy, nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah,
you know, you might as well just take them out and call it a play. And so that's the problem, is people like, then you make the movie Cats or the movie Damn Yankees or any other movie, and you try to make it as close to the musical as possible, and it never works.
No.
Because it's just like Damn Yankees is a perfect example of what you were saying, where they put people in the movie, like Gwen Verdon kills it in that movie, but pretty much everyone else sucks. You know, Tab Hunter is the star. That guy's not an actor. No. He's a fucking a movie idol. You know what I mean? But like in this one, it's overflowing.
It's stacked.
It's amazingly talented people.
Yeah, I mean, Corden as like I like Corden. I personally do. I like Corden. He puts on like a good performance in the movie.
It's one of the best songs in the movie, for sure.
Jason Derulo. I don't know if the song Rum Tum Tugger is actually good, but you know what? Jason Derulo makes it sound really great. What's her name? Jennifer Hudson. I mean, you can't really say anything about Jennifer Hudson. The woman, amazing, and has probably one of the greatest voices of all time. So
absolutely. And sadly, when I watch this, I'm reminded of how good she is in Showgirls, and how that is actually a good example. I mean, it took forever, but it's a great example of how they put that on the screen, because it's not exactly the same as the musical. There's a ton of dialogue and a ton of character development, and they move the story along, and you know exactly who's the good guy and who's the bad guy and where this is going. And it's beautiful, and it's beautifully told. And you know, on screen is the music and everything is perfect. You know what I mean? You can listen to it and hear the best version ever. Like when we all watched Hamilton on Disney Plus, you know, for free. It was fun, and all. But is that the best version of that play ever done? Probably not.
Probably not.
They've already done it a million times, and it's been recorded, a million times and put into the best version. So when you're watching Cats, you know this is probably the best version of these songs I'm going to hear, or at least that's the only place you're going to hear that cast. You know, there is no other version with that amazing cast in it. So you listen to it and you go, man, I love Cats, having never seen the fucking movie. And guess what? Now everybody loves the movie Cats because they love the fucking soundtrack.
Yeah.
It amazes me that it took this long to make it, because when something takes so long, to switch over like a comic book movie or something like that, like the Simpsons movie, I guess is the best example. They talk about making it forever, and that they could. It's not like they need to nail down the licensing or whatever. It's just a matter of when are you going to do it.
Yeah.
And so it comes out and everybody goes, wow, this is great. No wonder it took so long. They wanted it to be perfect. But the Cats is not that.
No.
Cats is like, wow, it took so long because I don't know. Everyone wanted to get paid a lot of money. I have no fucking idea why it took so long, because I would have gone to see it with fucking James Brolin and Morgan Fairchild probably when it came out and wasn't available on video before, when every movie opened in the theater. I probably would have gone to see it then. But it's not like they waited until they got it perfect. I don't know what they were waiting for. Anybody could have been in it.
Yeah. So is this the worst movie that you've ever seen?
It's hard to say because, I'm an old man and I have seen a lot
of movies. Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of bad ones.
Yeah. I mean, like personally, my experience, like my worst movie is because I love horror. Like this entire top rack is nothing but horror movies, and the worst one that I've ever seen is a movie called Nurse 3D, with Paz de la Huerta.
Okay,
it is. I can finish most bad movies because I love just breaking down a bad movie and enjoying it for what it is. That movie is so bad because she is such a terrible actor.
She's crazy too.
I couldn't finish it. Did
you ever hear that story about her on the set of Boardwalk Empire?
No.
She was in the first season of Boardwalk Empire. She played Steve Buscemi's girlfriend. But later on in the series, her and Michael Shannon get together and they have a sex scene. They have a few sex scenes and she gets pregnant. But apparently on the set while they were simulating sex, because they were simulating doggy style sex, she's on all fours. But she happened to be on her period at the time and she's nude, but there's a tampon string hanging underneath her.
Yeah.
And so they're like, cut. And people are already fed up with her bullshit. So they say out loud, Paz, can you tuck your string back up inside, please, so we can get this shot? And she reaches down, yanks it out, throws it on the floor, and says, there.
And seems like a great person to work with.
Right? And that was probably the second to last day ever on that set. But that's why you don't see a lot of her these days, because that story exactly like that. Yeah. But that's the thing about bad movies, to get back to your point, is sometimes you watch a movie and your standards are so low that you're like, well, yes, this is bad, but that's what I expected. But the bad things that you wanted to be bad were bad, but then the good things were still good. Like it didn't take itself seriously, so it was kind of funny. And then you're like, and the effects were really fucking good. And I didn't see the ending coming. It was an actual twist. Things like, you look for things like that. Like I watched that Thunder Force movie on Netflix with.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. It just doesn't. I love Octavia Spencer, but I'm not interested in that.
I'm a fan of everybody, but just like all the movies she lets her husband write and direct, it has zero jokes and it just fucking meanders for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And I could say that was one of the worst movies I've ever seen, because it just doesn't do what it promised to do. There's very few movies I walked out of. If I pay to see a movie, even at home. Although I will say I fell asleep during the latest Mortal Kombat.
I mean, it's a video game movie, and I just took it as just that. It's just I enjoyed the 95 version of it because I was a 6 or 7 year old kid,
Right.
Uh, and I mean, I've watched it since, and I mean, it's not a good movie, but it's a fun movie. And this one is just literally, it's almost kind of like that, just with better graphics and more gore.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I am, maybe if I had seen it in the theater and I was eating popcorn and stuff, I would have, I
Yeah,
would have stayed awake and enjoyed all the craziness. But yeah, why it's not really much at home on your couch.
yeah,
And
it's
I think that might be a new thing because so many movies obviously they had to premiere streaming, and there's so many big movies that we're watching. Like, was
Godzilla
Wonder
versus Kong.
yeah, I want to ask, was Wonder Woman really that much better a movie than Wonder Woman 84? Or was it because we all saw Wonder Woman in the theater and it was an amazing experience, and then we all watched Wonder Woman 84 on Christmas Day at our house while we were fucking locked up for 6 months and in a shitty mood? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Yeah. I mean, I still believe that movie is garbage, but you got to take all that into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about like literally exactly like you said. It's all about like more so circumstance. Like, where are you when you're watching it? What kind of headspace are you in?
Who are you with?
Yeah,
Yeah, I've tried to go see movies in the theater during the pandemic, but there aren't a lot that were playing in the theater, and not a lot of theaters were open. But like, I saw Nobody. I just went out and saw Nobody in the theater.
yeah. How was that?
Odenkirk's fucking amazing.
Good.
It's a great movie, and I was talking to a friend about it, and he's like, my only problem is I wish I had seen it in a crowded theater with a bunch of people, because he watched it at home
Yeah.
when it premiered, when it started streaming. But I was like, yeah, if I had, because I think I was one of 3 people in the theater that day. And I know, had there been a crowded movie, we all would have been like, yeah, because there's tons of kick-ass violence in it.
Yeah.
And I saw what was the other one I saw? It was really fucking good. I can't remember what it was. But I would see the movies in the theater, and every time think, man, that was fun. But it would have been a lot funner if I was here with my wife or friends or whatever.
Yeah.
And whereas it's the reverse. At home, I might be watching a movie with the wife, and it's like, wow, that was much better than I expected. And all of a sudden, it's my favorite movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The circumstances, especially now, especially in the past year or two, the circumstances are very, very important for whether or not a movie succeeds.
Yeah, because I'm a huge movie goer. Like I've been with I've gone to AMC exclusively the last like 5-6 years. And I'd go at least once, twice a week because I got their little AMC Stubs thing, and it's a very different experience just because like did you ever see the movie Crawl?
No, I've never seen it.
I mean, it make like, if you don't know the what crawl means, it's just talking about the crawl space under a house.
I'm sorry, I thought you meant Krull, Krull.
Oh no,
The
Crawl.
sci-fi fantasy movie, but
Crawl.
Yes, I have not seen Crawl, but I am familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an alligator kind of monster movie set underneath in the crawl space of a house. And literally, I had zero expectations of the movie. I'm gonna go see almost every single horror movie that shows up in theater, and I'm just in this tiny little theater, and almost every single seat is packed, and it's a much better experience because there's a lot of like huge like jump scares, but there's a lot of fun things that happen in that movie without like kind of spoiling anything. But you walk out of that theater experience because, oh wow, that was amazing, because you know what, whenever people were supposed to gasp or anything like that, they did. And when you're at home, because I'm so desensitized to a lot of horror, if I were to watch that at home, I might not have enjoyed it as much as I did seeing it in the theater. So
in Nobody, I'm going to spoil a scene, but it's actually
I'm okay with it.
It's in the trailers, so it's already been spoiled by the movie company. But there's a scene where it's pretty much the big ending where he's taking on every bad guy, but it's at his place of work at this factory where they make whatever. And he's in the middle of it, and then he stops, and he's right in front of the sign that says, "We've gone blank days without an accident," and it says like 16. So yeah, of course he fucking erases it and puts a 0 there.
Yeah.
In the middle of this big fight. and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm the only one in the theater. And I feel like an asshole. I remember when I was in high school and I went and saw the movie House, not the classic one, but the one with William Catt, where he moves into this haunted house and it's really goofy.
Oh yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, me too. I loved it, and I remember seeing it in the theater and like you said, there's a bunch of jump scares and goofy parts in that movie. And there's one part where he eventually kills this ghost monster with a shotgun, and he has to get rid of the body, like it doesn't disappear for some reason. Yeah. So he starts chopping it up and burying it, and it turns into like a montage, and they start playing "You're No Good" by Linda Ronstadt, and it's a great movie. Take this part seriously, and it's kind of goofy, and everyone in the theater is clapping along because they're all involved. And I was like, fuck, this movie is great. Yeah. You know what I mean? And had I watched that movie on video or DVD years later, I would have just went, this is a second tier horror movie. I'm not that impressed. And it's getting back to the point, I don't know that seeing Cats in the theater would have saved it, but I definitely would have enjoyed it more. As much as little as I enjoyed it, I definitely would have enjoyed it more seeing it in the theater. Probably because, like, when you're in the theater, you're trapped. You're either leave or watch the whole thing. Those are your only choices. When you're at home watching it, it's like,
you can walk away.
Pause it. Eat whatever I want. Pause it. I can look at my phone while I'm doing it. So it's easy, but in the theater, when you're at a bad movie and you don't want to walk out, you're kind of forced to make the best of it. So, like, I could see Cats being one of those things where a quarter of the way through, fuck it, this is awful, and I'm laughing at it and thinking up funny things to say to MST3K it and shit like that, Yeah. I remember because sometimes you're in a theater with a bunch of people and you all agree this movie sucks. Yeah. And it's like, well, we're all gonna laugh at it together. And like, I remember when I saw Spider-Man 3, was it 3? With Sandman?
Yes, Sandman, with Sandman and Venom and
the first Venom,
and kind of Green Goblin 2 or Hobgoblin. I don't know which one they decided.
Yeah, and that's the movie that killed that first Spider-Man franchise. It's universally agreed as to being a piece of shit movie. But there's one point towards the end when Spider-Man sees like a wanted poster or whatever of Sandman, and he sees his picture and it says his name, and Spider-Man looks at it and goes, Marco. Is that his name? Kane Marco? Yeah. But he looks at it and goes, Marco. And I went, Polo! And nobody cared. Everybody was on board because it was almost like they went, yeah, this movie sucks anyways. Well done, sir. See, and if I had done that in my home on my couch, it wouldn't have been near as funny.
Yeah, exactly. I remember seeing that movie. I saw that in theaters twice because I was like, after the first viewing, I was like, because I loved the first movie. I didn't like the second movie like everybody fucking does. But I loved Spider-Man, but I was like, okay, there's no way this movie was that bad. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I didn't catch on. And then I watched it again and I was like, wow, there was just too much that they were trying to cram in, and with zero execution as far as like successful execution.
Yeah, it's hard to understand because it's not like it's so different from the first two movies, especially the second one. They're just adding more villains and and it's like, okay, well, this villain is now tortured, and Sandman has always been a tortured villain. He's always been the guy who vacillates between good and bad, and so you look at it on paper and go, it's got all these villains I like, and this Venom thing, and bringing in the Venom story from the comics, but then they just, like you said, they just put it all together wrong. It's the execution is just like they put it together backwards, and then this scene's boring. Okay, have him dance. Have you ever seen that video of it's a video of him dancing, that whole dancing scene from Spider-Man 3, but with the music removed?
I'm sure I have. There's a great Twitter account called Zero Context Tobey Maguire or something like that, and they usually just pull clips from him and Spider-Man 3 and then just put like random music behind it. It's really great. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
some
mean,
of that movie is just unbelievable. It's hard to believe they had the nerve to do what they
yeah.
did.
Can you believe? Did you happen to notice at the beginning of this movie that this movie was technically produced by Amblin, so therefore it was produced by Steven Spielberg?
Yeah, I saw that. Which I mean, he's produced a lot of bad movies,
Yeah,
but this might be because I'm in the '80s. You know, when he started directing movies, when I was a young man, it was pretty much who's directing this? Oh, Spielberg. I'm on board because you knew
yeah,
it was going to be great. Once ET happened, it was like, okay, Spielberg's a done deal. So then when he started producing, they they promoted that all the time, produced by Steven Spielberg. So people would go, oh, it must be great, not knowing that he had nothing to do with the movie. The Money Pit. He produced The Money Pit with Shelley Long and Tom
oh yeah,
Hanks.
it's one of my favorite like slapstick movies of the 80s.
But it's not great. It's not like one of the best classic
No,
Tom Hanks comedies.
but
And at
Tom
the time,
Hanks but Tom
go ahead.
Hanks in that movie is great. I mean, just
For what it is, it's good. But I'm sure people saw it and went, oh man, this is a Steven Spielberg movie. It's got to be great. And I remember at the time Tom Hanks being on Letterman saying Steven Spielberg never showed up on set. He never even met him. Of course, now they're best buddies, having
yeah,
made movies together. But for a long time, that was a thing. Oh, Steven Spielberg produced it. But I think by now, especially with Cats, we all realize that that doesn't mean anything.
no,
Just because Steven Spielberg is involved.
yeah. Well, he put money into it or whatever.
Yeah.
Or yeah, his company did. So, did you happen to like any performance in particular from the movie at all?
Well, like I said, I wasn't that familiar with the music. So, every
No.
once in a while, a song would come up that I recognized or parts of it that I recognized. I am a big fan of Rebel Wilson, and I wasn't familiar with her song at all. So, I kind of like that. Just I thought she put her own kind of spin on it, whereas everybody else, Jennifer Hudson was just singing beautifully. It wasn't much of a character. Judi Dench was just reciting words. She wasn't doing anything else. But I thought Rebel Wilson was, like you said, with James Corden, they actually put in performances that made what they were saying kind of important to listen to. Like James Corden, he just sings a song about being fat. He's a fat cat. But I think his performance tells you more. He's not just a fat cat. It's like cats lead different lives and they do it for different reasons, and it almost gets to the point of the musical, which is, I think, there's a whole subculture in the inner life of cats and other things, like a Pixar movie. It's the secret world of bugs and the secret world of toys, and for some reason cars that we don't notice talk to each other. But this is like what cats do when humans aren't around. There's a
Yeah,
human at the beginning for scale, but this is what cats do when humans aren't around. And that's the biggest problem, is it just looks like cats just fuck around all the time and do meaningless shit. But the performances that make the thing kind of get to the point of the show is, I think, James Corden and Rebel Wilson, because they kind of say, look, I'm this kind of cat, and oh, I'm this kind of cat, and we do this because of this, and it's just more of a thing about, oh, do you like cats? Well, here's a fun cat story, rather than some stupid bullshit about a ball and who's the king of the ball and who
yeah.
gives a fuck. I have no idea. I still don't know what that was about.
Did you watch this by yourself or did you watch it with your wife?
No, I told my wife I got to watch this movie for a podcast if you want to watch it with me, and she just laughed. And and so I didn't bring it up again. And it was, I watched it late at night and she was already in bed. So that's the routine at our house, is she goes to bed at a normal hour because she has a regular job, and then I stay up 3 or 4 more hours and watch nonsense and fuck around on the internet. And so I was like, well, this is a perfect opportunity for me to watch this and
Not
see
bother
exactly,
somebody else.
yeah, and not bother her with it. But I told her today, I was like, holy crap, that was unbelievable. I at least told her how bad it was. But it's funny because, like, I don't know if you've ever seen Ishtar.
I haven't.
But for a long, Ishtar was, it still is for a lot of people, like the worst big budget movie ever. It actually, it was made in the day when it would lose money, and it was, I think it even came out before video. but certainly before DVD. But I remember that being a joke as the worst movie ever for a long time. And then I eventually saw it, and I was like, oh, I see the problem here. This movie starts out good with a great idea and great actors, and then they go to the desert and it's just bullshit. It's not, nothing happens, and it's not funny. You see the mistake where they made it. Whereas Cats and movies like that today, they know what they're doing. They know the mistakes they're making, and they're like, yeah, this is going to be terrible, but we're all going to make our money back. So who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
And that's almost become a class of movies like Nicolas Cage. You can't really judge a Nicolas Cage movie on how good it is, because we all know that he's just doing it because he doesn't want to go to jail. I mean, he's literally making movies so he doesn't. You know what I mean? He has no choice. Like, he can't say yes or no. The IRS sends him a script and says, this is what you're doing next. So to judge that on some, scale of other movies where people are doing it because they have a choice, you can't really say that. And that's, again, why so many Nicolas Cage movies, especially in the past, 5 years, are so fucking crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
each one is different from the last.
I've loved two of the ones that I've seen the last couple of years, and that was Mandy and Color Out of Space. I liked
Color Out of Space. Those were both really, really entertaining.
I like Color Out of Space a little bit more because it's more. I mean, it's like, I'm not a big fan of particularly. Why can't I think of his name? H.P. Lovecraft, but I do love the stories. I just like the not so much the stories. I love the mystery behind it all, just because like especially with Cthulhu. I mean, what's the point of Cthulhu? There is no point. He's a monster beyond description. That's it. I mean, but obviously people have kind of made something out of Cthulhu. So I mean, Color Out of Space is very much an H.P. Lovecraft, kind of like Reanimator was very much a H.P. Lovecraft. It's stupid fun, and Color Out of Space was really good. Mandy is just completely ridiculous. I still need to watch Willy's Wonderland. I'm actually very excited to watch that one.
Yeah, that looks good. I haven't seen it yet. I really want to see it. Because the premise is fucking funny already. We've all thought, wouldn't it be funny if these robots came to life and fucked around? I mean, how many times have you seen that story? Either just played for laughs
and then they made it for Five Nights at Freddy's. But the thing that intrigues me the most about Willy's Wonderland is apparently Nick Cage doesn't have a single line in the movie.
I just found that out myself. Someone said he grunts and groans and screams.
Yeah.
But he has no dialogue in the movie.
And I'm excited to see that.
And that's not even a selling point. That's what I think is cool, because there's no way you can find that out unless you've seen the movie, or if someone who has seen the movie told you about it.
Yeah.
That's not in any of the they don't say he's deaf, or if you watch the trailers, there's no scene saying, you don't talk much, do you, stranger? There's no bullshit like that in it. So you just watch the movie, and then halfway through it you realize he hasn't said a fucking word this whole movie, has he?
I know.
You pay attention to the rest, and you're like, this is fucking awesome. I love shit like that.
I was listening to a podcast with the director, and he had mentioned the fact that the host of the podcast had mentioned that I love the fact that Nick Cage doesn't have a single line of dialogue, and the director started talking about it, and like immediately that night I looked up, okay, how much does it cost to rent? Okay, I'm gonna probably rent that this weekend or next. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I'm sitting next to my sister, we live together, and I'm like, hey, are you interested in watching this movie, or do I need to wait to watch it with you, or can I watch it on my own? And she says, I don't know, let's watch the trailer. And we're about 2 minutes into this 2.5 minute trailer, and my sister turns to me and says, he hasn't said a word at all yet. I'm like, exactly.
And you might expect that in a trailer because it's a horror action movie or whatever, but you'd think at least something he's gonna say, like, I gotta get out of here, some fucking line from the movie. What a wonderland. Nothing. He doesn't say anything.
But I don't know. Movies are just fun, and that's exactly why I wanted to have you on here, because I know you have opinions on movies, but the thing is, you're insightful. You actually know what the fuck you're talking about.
I mean, I try to, and especially, the way things are with movies now, it's everything's in flux. And it's like movies that would have never been made 5 years ago are now winning Oscars, Nomadland and stuff like that, which is, what? It's part documentary, part scripted about fucking hobos. Is this really an Oscar winning movie? Whereas there was a time when Lord of the Rings was winning Oscars, and they're just not making those movies anymore. And it's almost like there's two Hollywoods now. There's the Marvel superhero animated big screen, Hobbs and Shaw. There's all those movies in Hollywood, and then there's the other Hollywood that is just like people being passionate about making movies, and whereas Hollywood says, "Oh, well, let's have this guy make this Parasite movie because everyone will fucking see it eventually because it's great, but it's let him do whatever he wants." It's like make something real big for a lot of money, or make something real cheap and give them complete artistic freedom. They do that on TV now too. That was FX's business model for a long time. Let's get Louis C.K. to do a show, and the only way he'll do it is by giving him 100% artistic freedom. And,
Fargo.
Fargo's Fargo. Yeah, and how do you do that? You say, well, we'll give you 100% artistic freedom, but you got to do the show for $100 an episode.
Yeah.
Louis C.K. said he made more money doing one stand-up show on the road. He made more money doing that than he did for an entire season of Louis. Why? Because he had artistic license to do literally whatever he wanted. And and these movies are like that. A studio will say, you can make this crazy ass script and we'll be hand off, but we're giving you almost nothing to make it.
Yeah.
And by the way, Nick Cage is out in the hall. He's very interested in doing this script. Whereas then they say, okay, and now the meeting over here, it's the new Green Lantern project. And we all know it's going to suck, but it's all going to make us all millionaires. So we got to go in that meeting for a minute and we'll be right back.
Yeah.
And which movie is which when you're going to see it. Promising Young Female and Nobody, I think, are great examples of, Hollywood movies that were good and were, big and starred movie stars and all, but they were obviously very cheap to make, very easy to make, only a few locations, a small cast, and a very simple story. And those are the movies that people are talking about now because they're right in between. They make you feel like you're going to see a Hollywood movie where it's escapism and shit happens that you would never see.
Yeah.
Promising Young Female, I think, is a perfect example of that. But then at the same time, they're professionally done, actors you've heard of, amazing soundtracks, the reasons you go to the movies in the first place. So I think those are the movies that people are paying attention to right now. And obviously, once the pandemic lifts, they're gonna release that fucking Black Widow movie, and everyone's gonna go, "Oh, this is why they didn't want to release it on streaming because it sucks." Because I have a feeling that movie is going to be released in the theaters. Everyone's going to go see it and go, "Oh my god, what happened?"
I kind of have high hopes for it. I mean, because
I do too.
Because I can watch any kind of indie and I'll really enjoy it. But the thing is, I can also enjoy those tentpole movies as well. Just like I've always done my best to not be a snob about movies.
Sure.
Because I don't want to go to a movie or put in a movie or download a movie or stream a movie and want to hate it. I will find good things about it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I will find things I do hate about it. But sure. I've always had that bit of optimism in the last couple of years where I'm like, okay, I want to enjoy this. I'm going to do everything I can to enjoy it. And whether or not that happens, I mean, I'll never revisit that movie, or unless I want to talk about it with somebody, I may go back to it. But I mean, there's plenty of movies that are bad, but there are plenty of really great indie movies. There's plenty of great tentpole movies, like everything like that. So I mean, I don't know.
I feel the same way about television. People have always asked me, what kind of TV do you watch? And the truth is, I watch everything, whether some good, some bad.
Yeah.
And sometimes, oh well, I want to go see this bad movie, and kind of make fun of it. And oh, like The Mummy. They made like what, 3 Mummy movies, and none of them are very good, but you knew what you were getting, and like he's kind of a bad actor, but it's kind of fun to watch. And you can't. We all know that guy who thinks it's hilarious to go see horrible movies over and over again. And the truth is, that guy just has shitty taste. It's not that he has a good sense of humor. He just has shitty taste. But
I'm okay with my shitty taste.
but there's also a part of you that says, no, I really want to be, inspired and titillated and moved. And, and any kind of movie can do that, whether it's a tentpole movie like, fucking Thor. What was the one where he's on? It was like Planet Hulk, the last Thor movie.
Thor Ragnarok.
I fucking, that's a great movie. It's
Yes.
undoubtedly a really, even if you don't watch any other Marvel movie, you can watch just that one and enjoy it, on its own. Great story, great acting, great
Sense
characters.
of humor is amazing. I mean,
hilarious.
Yeah.
God damn it, it's funny. Yeah, it's got all the good versions of a Marvel. It's got the best CGI. It's got the best acting. It's got the best comedy. Fucking Jeff Goldblum's only in that movie. He's not in any other if you want to see him. So eventually, at some point, it's like you want to sit down and see something that somebody worked on and put time into. And in some cases, that may be just the one performance. It may be a movie where, like Mank, I guess I didn't see it, but a lot of people are just so mesmerized by his performance as Mankiewicz. They're like, I don't care about the rest of the movie. He was fucking amazing, and that's what gets us to watch, whether it's movies, TV, or whatever. There has to be at least that one thing that keeps you going. And so when we say, yeah, we love shitty movies or whatever, it still has to be well made. Because I mean, how many times have you tried to watch a shitty movie and the sound, like Flash Gordon is one of the best bad movies of all time.
Yeah.
But I can't watch it because his dialogue is dubbed
garbage.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And that we know in the history of the movie, that's one of the reasons it's so terrible, because he refused to come back and dub his lines for the ADR, so they had to get another guy to dub every one of his fucking lines, and it makes the movie hard to watch just technically. So you can't say, oh, I love bad movies that are just shittily made. That's kind of lazy. If you like, I like Flash Gordon simply because of Timothy Dalton's performances in it. It's early Timothy Dalton, and he's really good. Unfortunately, he's not in enough of the movie, but I'll watch those scenes and be like, yeah, those are fucking great. But you can't just say, I love bad movies, and just watch garbage over and over again and go, yeah, look how great these are. There has to be something in it.
Absolutely.
Like Reanimator, like you said, as corny and cheesy as that is, it has this spark of this Lovecraftian lore in it that's really very fascinating.
Yeah, and Jeffrey Combs is amazing in it. I mean, like, literally, excellent. I mean, Barbara Crampton's good in it as well. I mean, but she plays her part. Her part isn't very big, but she plays her part. But I mean, when you watch that movie, you're watching it because Jeffrey Combs is amazing.
Absolutely, there's a reason why Herbert West is a well-loved character in sci-fi.
Yeah, I mean, I do like bad movies, but I don't like, those aren't the movies that I immediately go to. I'll watch a bad movie because I want to look for the good things in it. But I mean, the movies that I enjoy the most, I mean, I usually have a couple movies out here. I put Stick It up here just because it's the 15th anniversary. I don't know why, but I've got like Close Encounters here. I've got Halloween. I've got like, as far as like horror movies go, like my big one is like like the remake of Evil Dead and the remake of The Thing, not the Mary Elizabeth Winstead one. But, I mean, the movie that made me finally to start taking movies seriously is, I mean, Seven. Seven was the first movie that, like, it was production design. It was everything that went into that movie that made me start thinking, I want to know how these things are made, because that movie put so much time and effort into it. And
yeah, for me, for me, when I saw that movie, I was surprised at actually Kevin Spacey, because usually a movie like that where they don't reveal, like who the villain is, you just don't know what he looks like. They can't catch him. It's like serial killer movies. They're looking for one guy, but in a movie like that, usually when they catch him usually it's when they catch him, it's like Kiss the Girls or whatever. It's like, oh, it was this guy all along, or the bone collector, bullshit like that.
There's a big reveal or something like that.
So the character. Whereas in 7, when they catch him, that's the first time you see him.
And he just walks into the police station.
Yeah, and they don't really catch him. Like he says, you didn't catch me. I gave myself up. But also, there's no shootout. There's no stakeout.
There's no big set piece.
There's no yelling.
Yeah.
It's not until the end of the movie that we are all familiar with now when something violent happens. And also Kevin Spacey being, regardless of what a scumbag he is, he's an amazing actor, especially when he was a younger man. And for they obviously said we need to get a really good actor for this part. Don't just cast a fucking scary guy. Cast someone who's creepy and can deliver all this dialogue, just like in Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
No one else could have done what he did at the end of Usual Suspects. Fucking amazing. And and that's a great example of someone saying, well, we're going to make this noir, whatever. We're going to make this kind of a movie, but I'm going to put this thing in it to make it better, to make it more exciting and different. And and as we saw, 7 now, it's better than any fucking detective serial killer story. It's held in high regard because of that.
Yeah. So just to kind of wind things down a little bit, what have you been watching that you've enjoyed? Because you talked earlier, like you watch a lot of things, but what have you watched that you've enjoyed lately?
Well, I've been watching a lot of TV, more than usual, especially when most productions were shut down, there wasn't a lot to watch. So I was watching a lot of old shows. I found out they had remastered Baywatch and put that on Hulu.
I've never watched a single episode of it. So.
Yeah, me neither. I've only seen snippets of it. We're all familiar with it. We get it. So I watched what a lot of people don't know about Baywatch is the first season was on NBC, and it was a regular NBC show, and it starred David Hasselhoff and Parker Stevenson. They were both the stars of the show. They were the leads of the show. David Hasselhoff was like lead head lifeguard, and Parker Stevenson was a lawyer who was a part-time lifeguard. So they had all those stories, and then it got canceled because it was garbage. And then Hasselhoff said, well, let me buy the show. I won't give myself a salary and we'll syndicate it. And that's exactly what, and that's why it became the Baywatch that everybody knows. So the first season is a lot different. And I wanted to watch the first season and see how it was different than on a network and if it was any better. And it's not much better. It's still a bad show, but it's remastered. So, it's easier to watch. The sound and all the fucking, the montages of people surfing and shit, they all look amazing. And you get to see a lot of like young Brian Austin Green and people like that in these small roles. It's very funny. So I was watching that on Amazon. They had a lot of old detective shows. I watched Banachek and 10 Speed and Brown Shoe. Those are not remastered, so they're a little more difficult to watch. But again, it's great to see old actors on that. As far as movies, Hulu has a lot of good movies that went straight to streaming. I just watched this other one that you might like. I think it's called Becky, and it's your typical home invasion story where one person in the home turns out to be a badass and fights the guys off.
Yeah, kind of like a something next.
You're next.
It's kind of like a You're Next.
Yeah, there's a bunch of those now where people come, like also the one where they try to rob that blind man and turns out just because he's
Don't
blind,
Breathe. Yeah, Don't Breathe.
So yeah, it's the same story, but in this one, it's funny because the person breaking into the house is Kevin James, who's an escaped prisoner.
Yeah, I've heard about this. Yeah,
and he's a Nazi and a badass.
Yeah, with the little girl, Lulu Wilson.
Yeah, and Lulu Wilson plays this little girl, Becky, and her dad is played by Joel from The
Kinnaman?
Soup.
Oh, no, Joel McHale.
Joel McHale. So you got these two comedians famous for their sitcoms, but it is not a funny movie.
Yeah.
And it's the daughter Becky, who becomes the badass and ends up killing all the bad guys and Kevin James and all that. So I watched that because it's kind of funny if you see these two comedians, but it is not a funny movie. And the little girl, she kills guys with a ruler and a bunch of colored pencils and shit that she has in her treehouse. So I watched that the other night. I liked it a lot. And there's a lot of movies like that clearly people someone had an idea and they spent a few bucks and said, well, let's see who watches it. But a lot of those are decent. They're only on. Also, I've been watching Invincible on Amazon. Have you seen that?
I haven't started it. I'm excited to like Jason Mantzoukas. I know is a voice in it, and like
a lot of great voices.
Yeah,
it's really good. It's because I mean it's a superhero show. It's a cartoon, and it's drawn really well, just like the graphic novel is. But a lot of good voices. J.K. Simmons. And Jason Mantzoukas, like you said, a lot of really good, and it's a great story too. If you're not familiar with the graphic novel, it's really, really violent.
Yeah, it's Robert Kirkman. So
it's Kirkman. It's basically someone said to Kirkman, "Hey, we want to make your other graphic novel into a show," and he went, "Not with real people, you won't."
Yeah, because I mean, you wouldn't get the same. Like you'd have to spend so much more money than they already do on Walking Dead, because I mean that show already has a huge budget because it has like the biggest makeup budget in the entire world,
and extras. They use more extras than any other fucking show. And I mean, they can't just use regular extras. They have to use extras who know how to act like zombies.
Yeah, and they don't half-ass any of their. They have hundreds of extras, and they don't half-ass any of those makeups. Yeah, I mean, Greg Nicotero. I mean, that's all Greg Nicotero.
Yeah, and Invincible, they obviously said there's no way we can do justice to this and make it live action. You'd end up with fucking a worse version of Heroes. So, so they just did the season finale. They just premiered last night at midnight. So the whole season is available on Amazon. But it's really well done. And for a superhero story, it's a good twist. It's definitely, I did not see the ending coming. Because in the first episode, something happens and you go, what the fuck? And you literally have to spend the entire whole series waiting for him to explain why he did what he did. But he does, and you go, holy shit, this is great. And it sets up the next season really well. So I would recommend that high who like superhero stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I've been watching Mighty Ducks Game Changers just because it's Mighty Ducks. I mean, I grew up, I'm a 90s kid, so I mean, it's not anywhere near as like it's not that good, but I mean, I'm still going to watch it. I watched, oh my God, the worst fucking documentary on Hulu the other day. Don't watch it. It's called Sasquatch.
I see it every time I turn on my Hulu. It's on the front page.
It's so awful because because I love the idea of cryptids and shit like that. Like I don't know if any of it exists, but I love the idea of people like who dedicate their entire life to it. And it's just another true crime doc with zero conclusion.
I hate that. At least tell me how it ended.
Yeah, but they draw people like me in who want to watch those cryptid shows, and it was awful.
And it's not even about Sasquatch.
It's
about
I watched
Sasquatch.
I watched half of Made for Love so far on HBO. I like it so far, but I mean the thing I've been enjoying the most is just every couple years I rewatch X-Files. So I'm halfway through the second season. I mean, it's on Hulu, and it's just a fun, like, you don't have to pay too much attention to it if you don't want to. Show.
Yeah, X-Files is a good show to go back and binge because there aren't many shows like it. Because so many shows that are dramas are procedurals now, where something happens at the beginning and then it's all wrapped up at the end, and maybe there's a extended storyline. But the X-Files was one of the last shows that had this very strong through line from the beginning, first episode to the very end. It even though it might sag at times, it is the same through line from the beginning to the end. But then there are also self-contained episodes that are fucking amazing.
Absolutely.
Like just the Fluke Man episode or
Yeah.
just the Cockroach episode and go, wow, I don't know who these characters are, but that was a cool show.
I hadn't thought about the cockroach episode in a long time, and that's a good episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one everybody talks about is Home. Home is probably like their biggest like standalone episode, but I've always
Classic.
loved the
Hard to watch.
yeah, I've always loved the kind of Frankenstein story that they did, the postmodern Prometheus episode.
Oh yeah, with the
Uh,
share stuff.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed that one, but I mean the show. I mean my favorite character besides like obviously like Scully's. I'm always a Scully guy, but I think more like a Mulder, but I always prefer Scully just because she's the rational person. But is Toombs. Toombs is
Sure, Eugene Toombs.
such a great character that I mean they don't overuse, and I'm happy they didn't.
No, just 2 episodes. Yeah, it's funny to watch if you do binge it. It catches you off guard. All of a sudden, you go, "Oh, this is the season where they just moved to L.A., isn't it?" Oh, this is where they let David Duchovny start directing, isn't it? Okay, and that's kind of fun. Because then you go into the newer episodes, which are actually quite good.
Are those the episodes where we kind of were in the desert? Like there's that big cliffhanger at the desert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, there's a huge like shift then. So
yeah, and especially when it leads to the movies, because they're kind of leading up to the first movie, so it's almost like they force a lot of stuff in that doesn't really make sense. Whereas the second movie just fucking comes out of nowhere, has nothing to do with anything.
No.
It's just nonsense.
But Paul, it's been really great talking to you, man. I can't wait to see you in person again. Like whenever, like, because I get my second shot May 5th and I'm going to be probably Cinco de Mayo. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, nice. Yeah, I got my second shot, so I'm incubating right now. And I just saw, the Grid just opened up on Friday. They're having their grand reopening tonight. So hopefully we can go back doing shows again at the Grid and get back into live shows and, do what we do.
Yeah. I feel like my comedy's changed quite a bit over the last year just because I'm not trying to write as like I'm not trying to be like dark anymore. I'm just writing like I don't know, more body dysmorphia shit.
Well, what I've noticed is comedians are writing stuff that they find more funny and less like reactionary stuff for the crowd. Because like especially these Zoom shows when people are still doing them, you're getting almost no audience reaction. So you have to like, well, this isn't going to get usually I'd say this and people would at least chuckle uncomfortably. Yeah. But I can't do that anymore. So I think it's good. And then once we start doing shows again, it'll adjust again. But I think it's good for comedy. Yeah. Shook things up. Certainly fucking got rid of a lot of the dead weight. That's for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I definitely see people still posting about shows that they're doing, and like, but you'll see the list, and like, I saw a list that Alice Valpy posted the other day, and it was like they had like 15 spots there, but only like 4 of them were filled. I'm like, what are you guys even doing?
Yeah, they're doing like 20 minutes each, but 15 minutes of that is
yeah. All right. Is there anything that you want to promote in particular? Well, I know you just had a show yesterday or the day before for all your favorite game shows.
Yeah, every 2 weeks on Wednesday night on my Twitch channel, which is, as you said before, is twitch.tv/thekingotv. I run all your favorite game shows. We have comedians come on and we play Match Game and Price is Right and all those game shows like that, and we have a good time, and it's all live. And I've had some great guests. I had Jim O'Hare from Parks.
Yeah, I saw that. That was awesome.
That was very cool. He was nice. Alex Bays, head writer for Seth Meyers, has been on a couple times. And so if you want to watch old episodes, you can go to my YouTube channel. Just Google Paul Goebel on YouTube, and all the episodes are there. Or you can watch clips on my Twitch channel.
Yeah,
there's clips there as well. And like I said, we do it live every other week. Who do I got coming up? Next Wednesday is Ron Lynch, comedian Ron Lynch, actor JP Manu, TV producer Shady Petoskey, and a few other people I haven't confirmed yet. So, nice. But if you want to be my friend on the Facebook, go ahead and friend me. I got kicked off Twitter, so I'm not on there anymore. But I'm still hanging on Facebook. They have yet to kick me off. So You can follow me there.
All right. Well, you can find me on Twitter at 5th of 55. The fives are numbers, or YCats Pod. And you can find this on YouTube at YCats Podcast. And email the show if you want to at ycats2019@gmail.com, which is so much YCats. But
There's a lot of white cats.
Yeah. But this has been a lot of fun. Thank you very much, Paul, for coming
Thanks
on.
for having me, man.
Yeah.
I will see you in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Have a
Thanks.
good day, man. Thank you.